Our next speaker is Prashant Tripathi. He's the founder and the market development director of Jodhpur, the consulting agency from India. And he will give the review of dairy product export opportunities in the Indian, Middle East, North African, and East Asia regions, providing a strategic perspective for the dairy producers to work with if they want to export their products to these markets. Hi, Prashant. We can see you now, but we can't hear you.
Yeah, hello, Alina.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
For having me here.
Okay, can we please run the slides? And Prashant, please be welcome to present.
Firstly, I would like to thank Brady and Alina, you for having me here. And I'm pretty sure your audience would be enjoying the content that they are seeing so far. So I have been given a task to talk about the export possibilities for the countries in the CIS region to Middle East, Southeast Asia, and Asia, and Northern Africa. Me being specifically from India, I would talk more about India and also give you a perspective about these two other markets as well. Can we go to the next slide, please? I have broken down my presentation into 5 parts. I would firstly like to talk about why India matters, then giving you an overview of the Indian dairy market. I would also like to talk about a few key facts about India and then the challenges that we face as of now and the opportunities for the CIS region. Next slide, please. Just to bring you and our audience up to speed, like here are a few facts about India. India, as of now, like what we saw or knew 10 years ago is pretty different from what it is now. India and India's dairy sector is changing rapidly. After independence, like in 1947, Indian government was pretty hesitant to open the agriculture sector because India was pretty poor. We had not enough food for our population. So government was pretty much controlling everything, including dairy sector. They had the control or the licensing system till 1994 or early 2000. And after that, the private sectors were allowed to create dairies and like do milk production and other things. So just imagine, despite India being a very old, like more than 75 or 80 years old country, like after independence, dairy is pretty new. Because of this licensing system, most of India's dairy sector the farms have remained very small and they produce very little amount of milk. So we have more than 70 million dairy farms as of now. But now everything is changing pretty fast. India's economy is doing fabulously well. And thanks to that, consumers are changing. Consumers are demanding more innovative and westernized products. And this is opening up a completely new venue for a lot of Western exporters to the Indian market. Can we go to the next slide, please? So let's talk about why India even matters and why should we even talk about it? Next slide, please. Let's talk about the momentous change that we are seeing in India as of now. In 2023, India has already surpassed China to become the biggest population in the world. So as of now, our population is around 1.45 billion. That is far higher when you combine Europe and the CIS region's population. We are far ahead of that. So one is population. Second is India is a fabulously strong economy as of now. So we are the 5th largest economy with the GDP and the 2nd largest economy when it comes to the purchasing power parity. And it's like as per the forecast from the World Bank, India will be 3rd largest economy by GDP by 2029 and is currently growing at a compound annual growth rate of 7%. Most of the economic development that we are seeing as of now in India is actually happening in the southern part of the country and the western part of the country. And another factor that includes to a fabulous growth story is actually the population growth and urbanization. Next slide, please. Here in this slide, we see a graph of comparing the purchasing power parity of 4 different countries: US, USA, EU, USA, China, and India. Sorry, UK, USA, China, and India. And then you see like how India is doing relatively well. We had a compound growth of 6.7% in 2022. 2021 was 17% because we were just coming out of COVID. India, when we talk about the debt to GDP ratio, is also relatively very, very good. We are a country with relatively lesser inflation. Currently, the number shows 6.9, but as per the latest number, it has gone to 5%. And that puts us in a bracket where consumers are happy to spend more money, and businesses are also happy that they are doing relatively well. As of now, country has an employment rate of around 6.9 or 7%. That means labor still remains cheap in the country. Next slide, please. I think all of you should look at this particular chart. This is the chart that actually tells you why India is actually so important. Here we have a comparison of 2008, 18, and 2030, where you see that how the middle class and the upper class have actually swelled up. They are growing very fast. In the last few years, like we have actually pushed a lot of people out of poverty into lower middle class and middle class. So like less and less people are poorer, and more people have more or enough money to spend on their desired goods. We are not at par with Europe or like any other developed nation, but I think like we have seen a tremendous journey in last 10, 15 years. This also actually shows, let's talk about 2018, because the scenario is pretty similar. Upper middle class and the higher class, they actually make more than 30-35% of the Indian population, and that actually is much bigger than the European population altogether. So just imagine you have a population that has enough money to spend on good quality nutrition, imported products, good value products, and have enough of cash to look and live for a westernized lifestyle. Next slide, please. Here we talk about the population. As we know, in China, like their population has dwindled and declined. But when we see India, like there are three scenarios that we have built. If we have a higher growth scenario, and by 2100 we will see that if we go by higher scenario, the Indian population would be around 2.2 billion. By a mid scenario, that would be 1.5 billion. And if we have a declining scenario, that is a lower scenario, it would decline to 1 billion. But I personally believe that India is pretty much set to go into a middle growth, and it would be 1.5 to 1.7 billion. So that means we would have actually a thriving population, and we would remain the biggest population on the planet. Next chart is actually about the demography, and I think this is the fabulous thing to like look at. Whenever I talk to people about what products they want to introduce into a market, I say always look at the demography first. How many people and in what age segment they are male, female, because that determines what kind of products they are going to consume. You see more than 42% or 45% of Indian population is below 25 years of age. And these are aspiring kids, young people who want to look good, who want to eat better. So, and they want to adapt to more of a westernized diet and westernized lifestyle. So this gives a fabulous segment where which has a demand for highly nutritious products and cheeses. Then there is a significant portion that is between 26 to 60 years of age. And these are the people who actually earn a lot of money, they have money, and they can spend on good quality products. And then also, we have a massive population that is aging, and that gives an opportunity for geriatrics kind of nutrition for older people. And all these three segments actually require a lot of nutritional, they pose a significant nutritional demand for the world to fulfill. Next slide, please. I have added this slide. This is not much about dairy, but it actually shows the financial inclusion. Just imagine in last 10 years, India has achieved what it would have achieve in like next, let's say 40 or 50 years, is making a lot of people who didn't have a bank account have a bank account. That means these people are now connected to a financial system. They can receive money in the bank, they can get a loan, they can do whatever they like to do and spend on formal businesses. So this has actually given a very steep rise into digitization of payments. So that means businesses do not need to have a physical store to sell anymore. And India has actually surpassed China in number of digital payments and the amount of money that is being sent and received through digital payment methods. So a lot of businesses, they do not need to have a physical store. They are able to sell digitally because Indian audience and Indian people are pretty comfortable with these things. Next slide, please. So far we have seen what is actually that changing in India. Now let's talk about the dairy sector overview. This will give you an idea about how the Indian dairy sector looks like. Next slide, please. As of now, India is the biggest milk producer. Last year's number were around 221 million metric ton. That puts us significantly ahead of the second biggest producer, USA. We contributed around 24% of the milk production. And India is the home to biggest cattle population as well. We are home to more than 300 million cattle, which live on more than 70 million dairy farms, which are generally 3 to 5 cattle farms. So extremely small, with a very poor yield of just 2.4 to 5 liters per day, accounting to around 800 to 1,000 liters per year. And this gives opportunity for companies like Breedy to help us improve on our milk yields and optimize our cattle population. As of now, of all the milk, that around 221 million metric tons that is being produced in the country, only 25% is actually going through the organized sector. The rest of the milk is either consumed at homes or is going to the unorganized sector or delivered to homes without being processed. Next slide, please. Let's talk about the importance of Indian dairy to the Indian economy. Dairy actually adds around 5% or to the GDP of agricultural GDP to India. Is estimated to be around $314 billion, but the numbers are wrong. Sorry, it is by 2030, it is estimated to be around $314 billion, and is supposed to see 18% of compound growth, annual growth in the next 5 to 8 years. India has also been exporting. We are pretty self-sufficient, around 100% self-sufficient, and sometimes we go to 101%. And these are the times when we like to export products as well. Next slide, please. Why India is very different from China. China is also a very big importer, is also a big nation, but we are significantly different from China or from any other Southeast Asian country. Firstly, dairy is pretty much a culture in India. We are natural dairy drinkers. We consume dairy in a lot of natural forms like yogurt, curd. There are a lot of sweets that are produced in India, and they have been produced from thousands of years. Population, as the population grows, these people are requiring more and more dairy because majority of Indian population, more than 45% of Indian population is actually vegetarian and does not eat any form of meat or fish. So our nutrition, when we talk about nutrition, dairy and pulses or lentils become the biggest source of protein for us. And that's why dairy is actually a very, very big pro for us. As we have young population and as income rises and more people come to the urban centers, we see that they want to acquire more of a Western diet. We have a lot of Domino's and McDonald's opening up, and this is where people are consuming more and more dairy solids. And that's why demand for all these things are increasing. Next slide, please. Now let's talk about few facts about the organized sector. Next slide. Yeah. So when we talk about the, here's a chart that shows where we are going to see most of the demand coming from. And you see at the bottom of the chart, India, this is where you are going to see the maximum demand. And just imagine, I said India is 100% self-sufficient with lots of cows with very poor yields. Yeah. And as we westernize our diet, we see more urbanization. We are going to see more and more demand coming up. That cannot be fulfilled from homegrown milk. So that means there is a massive gap that we will see in the coming years that has to be fulfilled from milk that is being imported from different countries. And this is where the opportunity actually lies. Just given the size of the country, we are going to consume most of the surplus that is coming from any country. Next slide, please. Here you see the structure of Indian dairy. As I mentioned, Indian dairy, around 25% is organized, and remaining is unorganized. Among the organized sector, then we have cooperative sector and the private sector. Generally, now private sector is slightly bigger than the cooperative sector. And this is actually now the driver for change. So now there are more and more private companies coming up, trying to bring new products and forging newer relationship with international companies. Next slide, please. Here you see in this map, I have colored the states which are the major milk producing states or are responsible for 80% of India's milk production. Wherever it's blue, this is where private companies are stronger, and wherever it's green, this is where government and cooperatives are pretty strong. When governments and cooperatives are pretty strong, that means they are more focused on the liquid milk, not that much on the innovative products. But wherever it's blue, this is where you'll see private companies trying to bring new products, and this is where the cheeses are being produced. This is where whey is being processed. Next slide, please. Here you can see some of the biggest cooperatives. Amul, I'm pretty sure a lot of you would know. Amul is the big one of the, is among one of the top 20 leading dairy companies in the world. Is a massive giant with I think like it's a current valuation of around $5 to $7 billion. Then followed by Nandini, that is around $2.5 billion worth of a company. So cooperatives are pretty strong. They have a significant government support. But now, if you go to the next slide, we will see like some of these major dairy companies coming up in the picture. And these companies are changing the dairy landscape. And these are the companies that you guys should look at for forging relationship, or while you are thinking of exporting anything to India, these are the companies that would become a good relation partner for you. I have broken them into like 4 distinct parts. If you think north and south and the west, these are the parts that are dairy heavy. Eastern part of the country is not that strong with the dairy. Next slide, please. And what is and why dairy? Why private sector is actually able to change whatsoever is happening in the country? But like there's also a few challenges that they are facing as of now. First challenge is like it's not like Europe where you are able to contract milk production procurement as a processor. In India, a farmer has the right to decide whom he is going to pour milk. Till the end moment, he can decide to pour to you, or he can decide not to pour at your booth. And this actually creates a significant problem because we cannot forecast how much milk we are going to procure. And that's why we have to rely on a lot of methods to keep the farmers happy, like ensuring that they have access to veterinarians, ensuring that they are getting all the feeds. Private companies are like far more innovative and adaptive in this method. And yeah, and that is actually giving them an edge. Next slide, please. Now coming to the product breakdown, how India is actually consuming what we are consuming. So if you see around 45 to 47% of milk in India is consumed as liquid. And the next product, that biggest segment is actually ghee, that is clarified butter oil. That means of 221 million metric tons that is produced, around 50% is consumed as liquid. So that milk cannot be processed into something else. That means we have very little leverage on being able to produce commodities or ingredients, be it casein, caseinates, or whey. That is actually one of the biggest opportunity for all the Western companies or companies from the CIS to look at. One picture that I have put here is from grandma in a remote village cooking pizza. Just imagine access to internet and access to mobile phones has given ability even the poorest of the poor people in India to aspire, to look for something new. I'm pretty sure this grandma wouldn't even have seen a pizzeria, but she might have seen it on a mobile phone through internet, and now she's aspiring to eat something what she saw. And this is actually driving a massive surge in the consumption of demand for cheeses in India. And unfortunately, government is not even realizing it. They are still thinking that India would have enough milk, despite being 100% self-sufficient. But just imagine a country that is consuming liquid, and if they want to consume more cheeses, we would not have enough milk again. So that is one thing. Another good thing that when you're talking about the Europe or Americas or the developed world, you will see people switching from cow's milk to alternatives, to be it almonds or soy. But imagine in India, when a poor person earns a bit more and is like moved from a lower class to lower middle class, the first thing that they want to do is to spend money on good quality animal-based nutrition, be it in form of milk, be it in form of chicken or lamb. So in India, the biggest sources would be actually milk and the chicken. And milk is one of the preferred sources because, of course, India is majoritarily vegetarian country. So that's why, like here in India, you will see dairy is cannibalizing on the alternatives of plant-based nutrition. So this is another good thing about India, and that's why India becomes a very, very suitable destination for a lot of products that are going to be produced in the Western or the production centers. Next slide, please. Here is a breakdown. I'm pretty sure like it is pretty self-evident what is being produced out of milk. I think like it would be a good thing that you guys have a look at it, and then you can see that like okay, most of it's going of whatever is being produced into high value products. Ice creams are being produced, and then other products are being like yogurts are being produced. Yeah, next slide, please. Now talking about the challenges. I have definitely said we are the biggest milk sector. We have biggest cattle population, but now let's talk about the challenges that we are facing as of now. Next slide, please. Apart from having very very low yields in animals, we also have a very big adulteration problem. And if something is being adulterated, if milk is being adulterated, that means we don't. That is itself an indication that we do not have enough supplies into the market, or there are peaks of demand that we are not able to meet. And adulteration is a significant problem in India. So a lot of infant formula manufacturers, for example, be it Abbott or Danone or Nestle, they rely on import of some ingredients from Europe or Oceania, because of the adulteration. We also have pharmaceutical industry that prefers to import lactose from other countries. I was personally involved with one of the deals where we brought something from Belarus, just because like we have an adulteration and problem, and sometimes getting a good quality or securing a good quality milk, it becomes a challenge. Next slide, please. Another big problem is actually the weather. Climate change, like any other place, is impacting India as well. We have an extreme heat challenge. There are certain regions that can go to around 50 degrees, and that regions also have a water stress. So that means if this scenario keeps on increasing, we will keep on declining with our milk production. That could mean like whatever the demand where we see, that can even go bigger in the coming years. And when I say talk about this thing about India, that is actually true for Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka as well, because these are tightly linked geographies and they have a similar pattern. We are monsoon dependent economies, and we are some of the world's most populous countries. So like it's going to happen to all the four regions. Next slide, please. Here I have put a map of monsoon, and I have also put a seasonality of monsoon. Just wanted to describe that being a country dependent on monsoon, sometimes we can get very much shocked. Last year's monsoon was pretty bad. It was very much dry. This year it was too much wet, and that actually hinders the sowing of our grains. And in India, we are pretty much more, not just in India, but in Southeast Asia and South Asia, we are relying on grains and harvest of grains to feed to our cattle, because we do not have enough land to grow feed and fodder. So we rely on forages that is coming from these agricultural producers. So that are also being impacted, that can further impact the milk production in the country. Next slide, please. And now here's the diseases. And oh, sorry, this is about the fodder that I was already talking, that India is actually 60% short of fodder. You just imagine, like most of our cattle are pretty underfed. They do not have enough nutrition, and that's why they are not able to meet their genetic potential. Next slide, please. Now let's talk about the opportunities that we see from different countries towards the Indian and the other markets. Next slide, please. Here I have put two world maps. On the left with a lot of greens is actually India's exports to different countries. And the right one with a lot of yellows is actually India's importing from different countries. When you see the left one, this is where you'll see Bangladesh, Saudi Arabia, and USA popping up in dark green color, because these are the countries where we have been exporting a lot of products. Bangladesh being very close to India, and so that's why like it's very easy for us and to supply the products to Bangladesh. but it was just last year. They rather prefer to have products from Oceania because of the milk quality concerns in India. But when we see Saudi Arabia and US, you see these dark colors just because there's a massive Indian immigrant population that lives in these countries, and they still prefer to eat Indian butter that is 2.2% salted, or Indian clarified butter oil. But to other countries, we did export just because of the diaspora. For China, we did export some non-food grade products, casinates. When we talk about the imports, you'll see we have been importing from majorly from Europe. We did some import from Argentina as well, and you'll also sometimes see Turkey. Turkey being a destination for of traders. A lot of products also flows from these countries. But when we see Europe, and this is where I personally see a lot of because specifically, let's talk about Russia. Russia is now, and Belarus, you guys are producing a lot of cheeses. And I am pretty aware that like whey is being produced, and that can be a like fabulous product to be exported to the Indian destination, India as a destination. Or lactose will be another big product that can be exported to India. Let's go to the next slide. Here is a slide where I want to show you like how India was able to export SMP, and so like generally we export a certain amount just because it is going, we want to be the fillers, whatever little surpluses that we have, we ship. But there are two big blocks where, like that have been highlighted with yellow. These were the exports made because of the subsidies. Okay, so one was in 2019 when we had too much of a product. And then it was another one is 2021, just because of the COVID and lockdowns, we had too much of product in shelves that we needed to get rid of. And this is where Indian government gave subsidies to be to export these products to Middle East or to Northern African or Central African countries. So India does aspires to become an exporter, but every time, can we go to the next slide, please? In this slide, you'll see the fat exports, and then you have two lines. The line in green is the prices, European butter prices, and line in yellow is the Indian butter prices. And here is the beautiful relation. So every time India aspires to export, this is where Indian prices start to skyrocket. And India is only able to export when European prices are high. So we also have to be very careful about the relation of the prices. So that is also very good indication that the importers still prefer the European product because of two reasons: consistency in the market and the quality of the product. India is able to export, but every time India exports and the prices start to go up, also indicates that India does not have enough products to feed itself. And that is actually a very good indication that India should be into your radar, why you should try to export to India. I would also like to highlight that India has a tremendous amount of duties. So it could be somewhere between 25% to 40% on different products. But at times in the years, you'll see, if you look at the market carefully, you will be able to export to India, including the duties, still you will be cheaper than the home produced products. So, and given like the way we are producing, and our production decline can happen, India, you should actually have the foot in the door. You should actually keep on listening from India. You should be visiting India, or at least be in touch with Indian companies to look for that particular moment, since when India would start importing the product. Next slide, please. Now let's talk about the demand destinations. So like here we have talked, like here I have highlighted the key imports that happened to India. This is whey. And then you see like most of the whey happens from, of course, from Europe, then also from from Argentina. I'm super surprised why it happened from Uganda, that I am still trying to look at. You will also see like what amounts were actually coming from different countries. I have also highlighted that India has a massive demand. Alina did ask me that to predict how much deficit of whey we have in the country. I would say we have 100% deficit of whey in India, because India is not producing any cheeses. We do produce paneer, that is a cheese, fresh cheese produced from acidification through citric acid. And the whey that we produce is acidic whey and cannot be used for nutrition or pharma grade products. So technically we are 100% deficit of whey. and everything has to be imported. And given on the price that can be offered to the Indian market, I think Russia can become a fabulous exporter. Next slide, please. Here I have the slide for the Middle East, and you see that Dubai is a fabulous destination for exporting. Bahrain and Saudis, they are also very good destinations to be for exporting your product. But we know that like this region has demand, but there are a few things that needs to be looked at. One is of course, the oil price, and of course, this region has significant conflict that also hampers the demand generation. One If you are looking at cheeses, I would say analog would become a fabulous product to be exported in this market. I'm pretty aware Russia is producing a lot of cagliata, and cagliata is pretty much demanded in this region. This region also needs analog mozzarellas or slice-on-slice cheeses. They can be analog or Emmentaler or cheddar. So these are some of the products that I have personally encountered being in high demand in the market. Apart from that, this region also demands a lot of the UST grade skim milk powders, because they have to be converted into yogurts or other products. But being able to deliver to them at what rate Oceania is delivering is slightly difficult. But if you guys can match that range, I think like there's a fabulous opportunity lying for you. Next slide, please. Let's talk about the Southeast Asia. Again, this is not a naturally dairy consuming region. They consume dairy in different forms, not primarily as cheeses, but a lot of flavored drinks are coming up, drinks, and then confectionery is actually one of the biggest consumption requirement in these regions, including China. Of course, infant formula related products are also required in the region. But here, like there are a few things that we have to be very careful about. These regions have a very fluctuating demand. They switch very quickly from one supplier to the other, depending upon what price these are being offered. This can be an opportunity. This can also be a threat. But I think like for the CIS region, it will be an opportunity. I'm pretty sure. These regions are pretty sensitive about the currency and exchange rates, because depending upon how strong the dollar is, they would keep on shying from buying the product. And if their currencies fares relatively well against dollar, this is where they keep on importing more and more products. Next slide, please. And that is it for now. I think like there is always fabulous opportunity lying for a lot of dairy businesses. Specifically given Europe is projected to decline with its milk production, which happens to be one of the leading exporters. There is a lot of room for growth for other dairy regions and companies which are looking to progress in this direction. Thanks a lot. I hope you like my presentation, and I'm open for questions.
Thank you, Prashant. Do we have any questions from the audience here? No, so far from the translation.
I hope your audience did not sleep during my presentation.
Okay, I have a question for you. You mentioned that India has a huge demand in milk products like cheeses. Can you name top 5 products India is consuming for our audience to know what should they prepare for the import, like yogurts or?
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the leading imports happening to India would actually be on the cheeses like cheddar. Cheddar would be one of the biggest cheese that would be reprocessed or repurposed in India. Another biggest demand would actually come from, I would say, like ingredients would be the biggest demand. So whey, lactose, caseinates, and caseins would actually be the product that one should look at. WPIs, WPCs, these would be the products that one has to be very much focused on. And then when we talk about cheeses, we definitely import cheddar. A significant amount of cheddar is coming to the country.
Okay, thank you. Let me check once more for the questions. None so far. Well, thank you, Prashant. That was insightful.
Thank you, Elena.